Okay, excellent. It is 1:30 and we are going to get started. So, hi everybody and welcome. We'll let people in as they join. There's normally a few stragglers. Um, welcome. So today's 15-minute power session, and I run these regularly, just so you know, is called Meet the AI Power Brokers. And I've pulled it together because the people behind the rise of AI are gaining more influence than I certainly ever thought was possible. And while, yes, of course, politicians still hold a lot of power, the people behind the frontier AI models are actually accumulating unimaginable wealth and influence. And because these technologies are so widely used, they're touching every single part of our lives, which gives their creators unprecedented access to billions of people and their data. And we've already had a taste of what this might mean over the last decade when you look at the extent of Facebook's involvement in elections across the globe, but obviously with some very famous examples. When you control a frontier model, you can pull many levers of influence, and that doesn't mean you always will, but those levers exist, and the people who hold those levers aren't elected. Their actions affect not just individuals, but communities, economies, possibly nations. And there's still a question mark over how their actions will affect humanity as a whole. So that's why it's really important to know who they are, to track them, to keep tabs on them in case we ever need to hold them to account. And understanding the landscape of influence is, to me, a really important foundation of AI literacy. To me, AI literacy isn't just about learning how to write a prompt and knowing how to build a project in ChatGPT or to create an agent. It's about so much more than that because to be truly AI literate, you have to understand the wider political context and how that impacts your life and your work. So, during this session, I'm going to take you through some of the people who are currently holding the most power in AI. It's 15 minutes. I'm moving really fast. Unfortunately, there's no time for questions, but I do have longer sessions that I'll tell you about at the end of this. So, I didn't do a PowerPoint. Instead, I got my art and craft skills out and I've created little popsicle sticks. And the first person that we're talking about is Sam Altman. So I'm sure most of you know who Sam Altman is. He is an American entrepreneur and investor, and he's obviously best known as the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT. He's only 40, which to me is young, and he founded his first company, Looped, which was a location-based social networking at just 19, and he raised $30 million in venture capital. Looped was not a major success, but it was part of Y Combinator, which is the very famous Silicon Valley startup accelerator. And after selling Looped, Sam Altman joined Y Combinator as a partner and actually became its president in 2014, leading the organization through its biggest period of growth. And he was an early investor in companies including Airbnb, Stripe, Reddit, and Uber. And that's where most of his wealth comes from, not from OpenAI. He co-founded OpenAI in 2015 and transformed it from a not-for-profit research lab into one of the most powerful, commercially successful AI companies in the world. And he is also the co-founder of WorldCoin, which if you don't know about it, you should look it up. It's a very controversial cryptocurrency project that links digital identity to biometric data. In 2023, Sam Altman was briefly, and I say briefly, it was 4 days, he was ousted from OpenAI by his own team for, and this is a direct quote, not being candid with the board. But he was reinstated just 4 days later after a staff revolt, and there is a lot that you need to understand about this, and I highly recommend reading up on it because there's a lot of nuance to it. And this whole thing echoed something that had happened earlier at Looped, where there was an attempt to remove him from the company for his chaotic and deceptive leadership style. That's a quote. He spent much of his time securing his global influence, meeting with world leaders and politicians. And Sam Altman, this to me is significant, but maybe not to you. He is a prepper. He is preparing for the apocalypse. That man's got a bunker. And his estimated net worth is around $1.9 billion dollars, and his stated mission remains to achieve artificial general intelligence for the benefit of humanity. But he's still got that bunker. Right. Our next power player is Dario Amodei. So you might know Dario. He is this founder and CEO of Anthropic, which is the company behind Claude. And Claude is one of OpenAI's main rivals. And Anthropic has built its reputation as the responsible alternative in the AI race, focused on building systems that people can trust. But before founding Anthropic, Dario Amodei was vice president of research at OpenAI. He left in 2021 saying he wanted to build a model that was safer and more trusted than what OpenAI was pursuing. And so he founded Anthropic. It's a family business. He founded it with his sister, Daniela, and developed the idea of constitutional AI, which is models guided by written ethical principles. Unlike Sam Altman, he keeps a little bit of a low profile. He's not traveling the world meeting politicians as much. But Anthropic is still up there with Google, OpenAI, and X, all of which hold US government defense contracts. Recently, Anthropic raised 13 billion in new funding a month ago, and a leaked memo from July showed Amodei admitting the moral dilemma of that deal, in which he said he wasn't thrilled about taking money from sovereign wealth funds of dictatorial governments. And a direct quote, this was leaked by Wired, from his memo was, "No bad person should ever benefit from our success is a pretty difficult principle to run a business on." He is now a billionaire, and the estimate is that his net worth is between 1.2 and 3.7 billion. I don't know who is doing these estimates, but that's what it says on the internet. Right, we are moving on to Demis Hassabis, who is the co-founder and chief exec of DeepMind, which is now Google DeepMind, and Isomorphic Labs, and he's an advisor to the UK government. Demis is British. His father is Greek Cypriot and his mother is Chinese Singaporean. And he was a chess prodigy as a child who went on to study at Cambridge before getting a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. He co-founded DeepMind in 2010. There were three founders, and they sold it to Google in 2014. And this company has been behind some of the most important advances in modern AI, from AlphaGo, which won Go, which is a very complicated game, which was a real pioneering moment, to Gemini, which is Google's family of large language models, and generative systems like Imagine, and I hate saying this because I'm not American, Nano Banana, which I think is supposed to be pronounced Nano Banana because that sounds better, but I can't speak like that. So he talks often about the long-term risks of AI, but he does frame his goal differently from the others. He says he wants to make AGI the ultimate tool for science, a system that can accelerate discovery in everything from biology to physics. Now, poor Demis is not a billionaire. His net worth is about $500 million, but he has something way cooler than $1 billion. In 2024, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in chemistry for DeepMind's work on protein structure prediction. And that same year, I'm calling him Demis Hassabis, but he's actually Sir Demis Hassabis because he was also knighted last year, because in the UK, you can't be a Nobel Prize winner and just a mister. You have to be a sir. So while most AI leaders chase commercial dominance, his power is really coming from credibility that is very hard to replicate. Right. Now we are going to China, and I'm going to talk about Liang Wenfeng. So Liang Wenfeng is the Chinese billionaire behind DeepSeek, which is one of the most surprising new players in the global AI race. He first made his fortune through an investment firm called High Flyer Capital. And because he's a billionaire, in 2021, he decided to stop buying NVIDIA GPUs, which are graphics processing units, these chips that we're going to talk about in a bit, just for a side project, right? And in May 2023, he announced that Highflyer was now going to pursue artificial general intelligence, and he launched DeepSeek. And before the US government restricted chip sales to China, this company secured 10,000 NVIDIA A100 GPUs, which gave it rare computing capacity to compete with OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. And I'm sure you all remember in January, DeepSeek released its first major model, which was called DeepSeek R1. And it was an open source reasoning model, which was built, according to the company, using just 2,048 NVIDIA H800 GPUs at a cost of $5.6 million. So the shock wasn't that this model worked, but that it worked so cheaply, because previously it had cost hundreds of millions to train these models. And the markets panicked when R1 was launched, and it triggered a stock market sell-off, in which Nvidia, the chip maker, lost $600 billion in a few days in market capitalization, and the Nasdaq dropped more than 3%. It was temporary, but it just goes to show the power of this one player, right? So that 5.6 million figure excluded over $1 billion spent on computing chips and millions more on top researchers. And since then, DeepSeek's maybe gone a little bit quieter, but the message still echoes. AI is not just about Silicon Valley. China's a real player. Right, I've talked about NVIDIA so many times, so much, and you can't talk about NVIDIA without me mentioning this guy. This is Jensen Huang, who is a Taiwanese and American co-founder and chief exec of NVIDIA, which is the company that began building graphics processing cards for the gaming industry and ended up powering the entire AI revolution. So he founded NVIDIA in 1993. He was old for a tech founder. He was 30 at the time, and he's been CEO ever since. And so what started as a gaming hardware business now sits at the center of global computing power. Every single frontier model needs these chips. And in July 2025, NVIDIA became the first company to reach a $4 trillion market cap, which made it the most valuable business in the world. And his own net worth is $164 billion. So Jensen Huang is not an enthusiastic lobbyist. That was never his plan. But because of US export controls limiting chip sales to China, he kind of found himself thrust into geopolitics, and he embraced the role. So he's been lobbying across Washington and Beijing because, of course, the restrictions impact his business substantially. Mark Zuckerberg has called him the Taylor Swift of tech. This guy is a real celebrity. He gets papped everywhere he goes. He's got an absolutely absolutely fascinating and very inspiring backstory that's worth reading up on. He never wears a watch because he says now is the most important time. So we can't talk about AI power players without mentioning these two, but I don't think they need any introduction. So we've got Mark Zuckerberg, who has made Meta one of the biggest players in AI. Its Llama's models are open source, which means they're available to developers worldwide, and they've helped position Meta as the counterweight to the closed systems that OpenAI provides. Meta has access to unbelievable data through Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. And so that gives them unbelievable power, especially Mark Zuckerberg. And of course, we all know Elon Musk, who co-founded xAI, the company behind Grok, which he calls the truth-seeking alternative to ChatGPT. It's trained on data from X, which of course is the old Twitter, and it gives them kind of both control over the content and the AI that interprets it. He says his goal is to build an AI aligned with humanity. No comment. Right. Then we have Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is not a frontier model founder. His net worth is around $20 billion. And he co-founded PayPal with Elon Musk. There's more to that story. It's not as simple as co-founding, and he was an early investor in Facebook. And through his firm, the Founders Fund, he's become one of Silicon Valley's most influential backers. early stage investor in SpaceX, Stripe, DeepMind, OpenAI. So he is a very powerful but quite polarizing figure, known for his conservative politics, his sharp intellect, and his reputation for being vengeful towards rivals. So look up what happened to Gawker Media. So he's not building AI models himself, but he does fund the people who do, quietly shaping where the money and the power flow in this economy. So while we have individuals like Sam Altman, Dario Amodei as the face of AI, the real financial muscle sits behind them. And we've got Microsoft is the biggest investor in OpenAI and provides the Azure cloud infrastructure that powers all of its models. We've got NVIDIA as a major investor in OpenAI, supplying the hardware that makes the systems run. Amazon and Google have each taken large stakes in Anthropic, helping to fund its Claude models and giving the company access to their massive cloud platforms. So what this means is that the other power players are Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Satya Nadella, Sergey Brin, Larry Ellison. These guys are also major power players in the AI world. So that's been a very brief, I've gone 16 minutes, overview of the people shaping the AI future. And possibly the future of the world. So they might not be elected, but they're very intellectual, very influential, and their choices affect what's built, who gets access, and how these technologies change the way we live our lives. So if you are interested in that sort of stuff, then I have an ask for you. I run a mixture of free and paid sessions on everything you need to know to become a top 1% AI user. And I'd be really grateful if you could spread the word by sharing these sessions, subscribing to my Substack or my YouTube, which is called The Humans in the Loop, and possibly joining the AI Edit, where you get access to all of my sessions for £20 a month. If you join the session via Zoom, you'll get an email with all the details. If you're watching via YouTube, check the description. My community is growing. The more it grows, the more time and resource I can dedicate to researching and curating this content. Much of what I do is unpaid, so your support really matters. So thank you for being here. And please do get in touch with me. I am on every major social network except Snapchat because I'm an adult. Thanks, everyone.